Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's start our Sunday class with the Gita Dhyanam. Om Parthaye Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayan Swayam Vyasen Grathitam Puran Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advait Amrit Varshinim Bhagavati Ashtadashadhyayane Am Tvam Anusandhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshane Namo Astute Vyas Vishal Bhute Full Arvind Ayat Patra Netar Yena Tavya Bharat Tail Purnaha Prajwalito Gyan Maya Pradeepaha Parpan Pari Jataye Totra Vetra Ekapane Gyan Mudraye Krishnaye Gita Amrituhe Namaha Sarvopnishdo Gavo Dogda Gopal Nandana Partho Vatsa Sudhir Bhogata Dugdam Gita Amritam Mahat Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kansa Chanur Mardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagat Gurum Bhishma Drona Tata Jayadrat Jala Gandhar Nilotpala Shalya Gravati Kripenvani Karnen Vela Kula Ashavatham Vikarna Gormakra Duryodhan Avartane So Tirna Khalu Pandavai Rannadi Kavartaka Keshava Para Share Vatsarojamalam Gita Arthgandhotakam Nana Khyanak Kesaram Harikatha Sambodhan Abodhitam Loke Sajjan Shatpade Reh Pepiye Manam Muda Buyad Bharat Pankajam Talimal Pradwansi Nashreyase Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langyate Kiram Yat Kripatamam Vande Paramanand Madhavam Yam Brahm Varun Indra Rudra Marutaha Stunvante Divyastave Vede Sang Padkrama Upanishade Gayanti Yam Samaka Dhyanavasti Tadgaten Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yogino Yasyantam Navidusur Asurgana Devaye Tasmei Namaha. Okay, we are on chapter 9, RajVidya RajaGuhya, and we ended our last week class with the verse number 27, where Lord Krishna is very clearly telling us how to love our beloved God. He says, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer in yajna, sacrifice, whatever you give away as charity, whatever you practice as austerity, O Kaunteya, do it as an offering to me. So it's not what we do, how we do. What should be our intentions? Everything, do it for God. So when we can master this, our life becomes fully devoted to God. So devotion is not to be restricted in our temple rooms or on our meditation seats. It should be engaged in at every moment of our life. Okay, every moment. And the reason we keep different forms of deities or we recite mantras so that we can do this. Those are the means so that we stay connected with God. So all actions should be offered to Him all the time. You are all familiar with Swami Vivekananda's very famous saying, no work is secular. Everything is devotion and service. Everything. And what would be the effect of such a manner of living a life? So that means when we are dedicating all our actions to God, what will happen? Lord Krishna says in verse number 28, Shubha Ashubha Falay Evam Moksha Se Karam Bandhane Sannyasa Yoga Yuktatma Vimuktaha mam upashyasi shubh ashubh phal. We all know that every action, it has a phal. Shubh karam has shubh phal. That means the pious, a good. Ashubh karam has a ashubh phal. So he says, Shubh Ashubh Phale, from good and evil fruits. Evam das, moksha se shall be freed. Karam bandhane, from the bonds of actions. Sannyas yoga yukta atma, with the mind steadfast in the yoga of renunciation. So you are renouncing yourself. See, normally our mind is attached to the fruits, or to the actions, or to the circumstances. He says, renounce from there and attach to God. That's what he's trying to tell us, that whatever you do, attach your mind to God. Vimuktaha, liberated, mam, to me, upashyasi, shall come. Thus shall you be freed from the bonds of actions. Yielding good and evil fruits. So bonds of action is what? The yielding of our karmas. Those are the bonds. So you'll be free. With the mind steadfast in yoga of renunciation and liberated, you shall come unto me. So this is liberation, liberation from the clutches of the fruits of the actions. So he stated in the previous verses that all actions should be offered to God. So now he is listing the benefit of doing so. Because we like to know, if I'm doing something, what is the benefit? Every action has a phal. You can call it a defect if you want to, but it's like an outcome. Cause and effect. Just like a fire is covered by smoke, or when we walk on the earth, unknowingly, we are killing tiny living creatures. Can we control that? Have you seen when you have gone for a long distance drive, how many bugs get killed with that light of our cars? In our occupational duties also, no matter how careful we are, when we are trying to fulfill our duties, we still end up harming the environment and hurting others. In the Shubha Karam also. Sometimes I see when I'm doing the Havan, so Shubha Karam, I'm putting that stick, because those sticks are gathered from the ashram ground. There could be a little ant on it after I've already poured it in there. If you see it before, we can shake it off. But sometimes it's not possible. You're absorbed in doing what you're doing and you end up killing something. Even when we eat a cup of yogurt, we still incur the sin of destroying the living entities that reside in it. So both bad and good karmas result in the continuity of the cycle of the birth and death. But in this verse, Lord Krishna is giving us a very simple solution. For destroying all karmic reactions, all good or bad, he uses the word sannyas yoga, meaning renunciation of selfishness. So in simpler terms, if you want to know sannyas yoga, renounce your selfishness. Take the me and mine out. He says, when we dedicate our actions for the pleasure of the Lord, we are freed from the fetters of the good and bad results. So it's a pretty simple technique, actually. He is giving it to us. Those who establish themselves in such consciousness are called Yoga Yukta Atma. Yoga Yukta. They are united. And these are the yogis who are called Jivan Mukta. It's not what they are doing, but where their mind is. So any method, because in order to live, we got to take care of our basic needs. So that's how we keep on floating in the stream of life. But he says, whatever you are doing, no matter what kind of action, strive to live the whole life as a constant love offering to God. This is the point he's making. When our karmas are undertaken without ego, the reactions of those actions, whether they're good or bad, they don't reach us. And in short, what happens, our mind becomes more and more purified. And a purified mind can concentrate even more. Concentrate on the beloved. And the next stage of evolution is that such a purified mind, discovering in itself more and more discrimination, learns to live a life of a sannyasi, a sannyas yoga. So in the language of Gita, the sannyas is the renunciation of all egocentric activities. That's why I said earlier, the no selfishness and all anxieties or cravings for the fruits of actions. That's a sannyas. Sannyas doesn't mean leave your duties. Lord Krishna is not telling Arjun to leave this duty. He's telling him to wage this war because this is your duty. But wage the war, do this action as a sannyasi. So the result is he's telling us the same thing. Just very simple, offer everything to God. And a person who has come to live the sannyas this way, yoga is natural. Yoga means a union. That is a yoga. It's natural because all throughout the hours of our activities, we are remembering the infinite. The name we say, that is just a conduit. We are trying to connect with the infinite. Remember that. So this seeker is promised that he will go to the Supreme. What then? Verse number 29. Sama aham sarvabhuteshu na me dveshe asti na priya. Ye bhajanti tu mam bhaktya maite teshu cha api aham. Some means the same. Aham I, sarvabhuteshu, in all beings. Na means not, me means to me. Dveshya, hateful. Asti is. Na means not, priya. Priya means dear. Ye, who, bhajanti, worships. Tu means but, mam means me, bhaktya, with devotion. Mai, in me. Te means they, teshu, in them. Cha means and, api also, aham I. The same I am to all beings. To me, there is none hateful nor dear. But those who worship me with devotion are in me, and I am also in them. So God is one in all beings, everywhere. So the same conscious principle illumines all of us. So that's why he says, I am in all beings. And he's not talking about human beings, everywhere. It's almost like we normally use this example of the sun. Sun illumines all objects of the world. Its rays get reflected on all surfaces. Whether the surface is dull, like a surface of a rock, or if the surface is bright, polished jewel, sun is equally reflecting, but the reflection back is different. So the same God in all of us, if the mind is pure, we call that person a saint. If the mind is not so pure, we call it a sinner. So the same Atma. Another example the rishis use, the rainwater falls equally upon the earth. But the drop that falls on the cornfield get converted into the grains, the corn. The drop that falls into the desert bush will be converted into a thorn in that cacti. And if it falls into a gutter, it becomes dirty water, stinking water. And the drop which falls on the oyster becomes a pearl. So same water. There is no partiality on the part of the rain, just like no partiality in the sun. The same way God says that he is equally sitting in everybody. Those who love him, they feel the grace. Those who don't, they don't feel it. So God does not have a preference or prejudice against anyone. Remember that. If our heart is pure, it's noble, we will feel him. We will experience him. But if we don't, then we know what the condition is. So I am in all beings. To me, there is none hateful nor dear. God doesn't make judgments like that. Those who worship me with devotion, sometimes we think he needs our worship. No. When he talks like that, these phrases we should understand for our benefit. That if we want to feel that love and the grace, we need to connect with him. Worship is a technique by which, in essence, the entire thought forces in the worshipper are moving towards the divinity. It's like a diviner point of contemplation. That's a worship. Because otherwise we are busy doing this or that. But when we worship at that time, we should take our mind towards only towards divinity. Now the question is this path of self-discovery to connection with God or loving God available only for the good then? Because they reflect it. So is it only for them? So Lord Krishna says, let's look at how he answers this. Verse number 30. Api chet sudurachara bhajate mam ananya bhak sadhu ev sa mantavya samyak vyavsita hi sa. Api means even. Chet means if. Sudurachara, a very wicked person. See, su means very over here. Du means wicked. Achar is the conduct. If the conduct is very bad. Bhajate worships. Ma means me. Ananya bhak, with devotion to nothing else. loving me only. Sadhu, righteous. Ev means verily. Sa means he. Mantavya should be regarded. Samyak, rightly. Vyavstha, resolved. He means indeed. Sa means he. Even if the most sinful worships me with devotion to none else. So that means with single pointedness, he too should indeed be regarded as righteous. Why? Because he has rightly resolved, vyavasitha. That is the key word over here. So he had made a U-turn. So remember, bhakti, according to Bhagavad Gita, is selfless contemplation with a single pointed mind upon the Brahma. Okay? And this God is not somewhere on the seventh heaven, God is everywhere. So we can make this resolve. A constant attempt to live up to our own real nature, like essence of us, is called a single pointed devotion. And when this bhakti is practiced for a long time, with the required intensity and sincerity, we'll see we are moving upward, closer and closer to that. And there are many, many examples. Durachari, they became a Bhagat. Classical example is the Valmiki. Vilest of the sinner, he was a well-known robber. But what happened to him? The whole world it's just got changed for him. When he listened to his guru, Naradji, then sit down. Just say the name of God. He couldn't even say the name the right way, Ram. He was saying Mara, but in his mind it was God. That's why in Ramayana it says, Ulta naam japat jagujana bal miki brahm samana. Even by saying the name Ulta, instead of Ram, Mara, but in his mind, he was connecting to God. So sinner Valmiki attained sainthood by chanting the syllables of God's name in the reverse order also. So that's why Lord Krishna is saying that sinners are not condemned to eternal damnation. If they make a resolve, if they can do the Ananya Bhakti, it's like a total concentration on the divine light or divine name, they will reach me too. But resolve has to be pure. Intention has to be right. Okay, so that is the key over here. So he has rightly resolved, he says. Next verse, 31. Kshipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat shantim nigachati kaunte prati janehina me bhagata parnashyati. Kshipram, soon, bhavati becomes dharmatma, righteous, shashvat, eternal, shantim, peace, nigachati, attains to. Kauntya, that is Arjun, prati janihi, know for certain. Na means not, may my, bhakta, devotee, parnashyati is destroyed. Soon he becomes righteous and attains eternal peace. Soon does not mean the next moment. It could be next moment. It could be next life. Doesn't matter. But if you're on the path, we'll definitely reach there. Soon he becomes righteous and attains eternal peace. It's not a peace, momentarily peace, eternal peace. O Kante, know for certain that my devotee is never destroyed. So he is explaining or giving his word to us that if we continue the process of exclusive devotion with unflinching faith in him, our hearts will become purified and we will swiftly develop saintly virtues, divine virtues. Those divine virtues, they emanate from God himself. And what are those divine virtues? We'll be truthful. We will be compassionate. We will be loving and merciful. We will be just. Those kind of virtues we'll see. Those are the virtues of a devotee. Because we, in essence, the soul is a tiny part of God. We are very naturally drawn towards these godly qualities. Very naturally. But the process of becoming virtuous remains elusive to us. And that is a mystery. Our essence is all pure. Everybody else's essence is pure. Why do we end up doing non-pure deeds? That's why without purification of the mind, blemishes of the character cannot be eradicated fully and permanently. The purification of the mind cannot take place without attaching it to all pure God. And that's what devotion is. Thinking about God, chanting the name of God, serving God, thinking about God. It's like a constant smaran of the divine. That's why we have the rituals. That's why we have the symbols also. Even a very simple symbol of having that sacred thread tied on our wrist. Remembrance of God. We look at that and we say, yeah, I have to think about God. Putting a tilk on our forehead, thinking about God. Periodically doing fastings or doing seva, helping the needy, remembering God. So that's how we train ourselves. Here and there we feel peace then, but ultimately this peace becomes eternal for us. It's a divine tranquility. That's why he says a true devotee soon reaches the supreme peace. So this delay is not from God's side. Delay is only from our side. And then, but he says, my devotee is never destroyed. This is the unchangeable truth. Unchangeable. Prati Janihi, this is a very special term Lord Krishna is using. It's like this has its own special powers of assertion, Prati Janihi. Okay, imperative urgency we see in this word, Prati Janihi. So this verse, together with the previous verse, is telling us that constantly keep, at least in a corner of your mind, a continuous awareness of divine. If the whole mind is not filled with God, a corner of your mind, And if you do that, the progress and the growth you will see. Now in the next verse, we see there's such a greatness of the path of devotion for everybody who's eligible. Everybody. Mam hi parth vyapashrite ye api siu pap yonya istriya vaishya tatha shudra te api yanti param gatim. Mam means me. He means indeed Parth, Arjun. Vyapashrite, taking refuge in. Ye means who, api even, siu, maybe. Papyonya, the sinful birth. Istriya, women. Vaishya, the traders. Shudra, the workers. Te means they, api also, yanti, attain. Param, the supreme, gatim goal. This is one of that verse where people get a little confused. Because there's a deeper significance to these terms. For taking refuge in me, they also, who, O Parth, may be of a sinful birth, women Vaishya as well as Shudra. Even they attain the supreme goal. First of all, remember, all souls are part of God. Or we can say that children of God. He is willing to accept everyone with open arms, provided they come to him with genuine love. And over here, he is not talking about the physical body. Because he said earlier, any kind of action. Over here, he is referring to the minds. When he says Istriya, that means the feminine mind. In a feminine mind, there's a larger share of attachment to the children. So we got to change that. If our mind is just constantly attached to the children or other people, move it to God. So it's not a gender he's talking about. He's talking about the kind of a mind. And the Vaishya, that is like a commercial attitude. If our thoughts and actions or our mental life is as traders, we got to change that. Instead of a business mind, have a devotional mind. Because otherwise, if you are calculating the material gain all the time, where can I make more money? Where is my money? Am I number one or not? That's not a devotee's mind. So he's talking about the mind. And the same way, the Shudra. Shudra is just, again, a lot of tamsikta in Shudra. Doing the least, getting the most. That is a Shudra mentality. He says these mentalities, the mentalities which keep you at the lower level, let go of those. And if you do that, he says, sure, you will attain the supreme goal too. So our attachment, which is towards the money or towards the people, if we can move it to God, we will attain him. So he's not condemning anybody. But he's definitely condemning the slothfulness, the slumber, or the commercial tendency of the mind, or the attachment to our relationships. So sin, according to the Vedas, is a wrong tendency in the mind. That's a sin. Created out of the past unhealthy thought or a negative living. So these are the wrong tendencies. We need to plow them out of our mind. And instead of that, plant the divine seeds in there. So feminine nature of the mind, Istriya, the commercial attitude of the intellect, Vaishya, or the general dullness or the morbidity in our inner life, the Shudra. I'll do it tomorrow. Let somebody else do it. That's a Shudra mentality. Let that go. So he is giving us a prescription for our sadhana. Sadhana, where we move towards the highest. I thought I'll finish it, but let's stop it here and I'll finish it next week. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Visheshyate Om Shanti 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 Om.